Okay, so as you've seen, I've done each stripe of the Disability Pride flag individually. Well, today we're going to put them all together. And when we put them all together, we are going to see how many of these disabilities overlap under different stripes of the flag. So some of these are not just under one section, but under multiple sections due to the type of disability. So we are starting from the bottom of the flag and working up. So we are starting with the red stripe, which is physical disabilities. Examples of physical disabilities are cerebral palsy, because it affects a person's ability to move and maintain balance. Cerebral palsy is usually caused by abnormal brain development or brain damage that affects one's ability to control their muscles. It is the most common motor disability present at birth. There are multiple types of cerebral palsy. Spinal cord injuries are another physical disability. It pretty much can result in loss of strength, sensation, and function, which means mobility and or feeling. So it can damage your nerves to the point where they no longer work or feel anything. And it can damage your mobility, meaning you might have difficulty walking or maintaining coordination and balance, or in some cases, paralysis, meaning you can be paralyzed from the neck down or paralyzed from the waist down. Another example of a physical disability is amputation. It is a removal of part of the body. Some common causes of amputation are accidents, like car accidents, things like that, surgery, infection, cancer, things like that can cause an amputation. Charlie Barley here is a partial tail amputee, and he is also on the red stripe of the Disability Pride flag. Another one is spina bifida. It is a birth defect that occurs when the spine and spinal cord do not form properly. Babies with spina bifida do not have progress of the neural tube because it is supposed to close, and it doesn't. And it affects the spine and the spinal nerves and the bones of the spine. Then there are musculoskeletal injuries, which refer to the damage of muscular or skeletal systems. Most are work-related, and they can mess with your ability to function and move properly. The next stripe is the gold stripe. It encompasses neurodivergence and intellectual and cognitive disabilities. So, we're going to start with the neurodivergent side and work our way over. Some of the most common neurodivergent conditions are ASD, autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and Tourette syndrome. So, we're going to start with ASD. Autism spectrum disorder has different levels. So, the first level is pretty much you can function neurotypically, but you are autistic and you struggle with sensory problems and things like that. Level 2 is, I guess, what they would call mild autism, and so you do need assistance with everyday tasks, and your symptoms are more pronounced. With profound autism, which is level 3, you need lifelong assistance and help to care for yourself. Many autistic people experience sound, light, texture, and touch with an intensity or dullness that neurotypical brains simply don't register. ADHD is the next one. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition as well as ASD. It affects attention regulation, impulse control, and some people hyperactivity or inattentiveness. So the symptoms often present as disorganization and internal restlessness. Dyslexia affects how the brain processes written language. Many dyslexic people show above average strength in visual spatial reasoning and big picture problem solving. Dyspraxia, also called developmental coordination disorder or DCD, affects motor planning and coordination. Give me a second, y'all. Need a sip of water here. That is much better now that I can actually talk properly. So with DCD or dyspraxia, simple tasks like buttoning a shirt, catching a ball, handwriting, they require conscious effort that comes automatically to most people. So when most people, pick up a pen, they start writing because their brain goes, hey, hand, start writing. Whereas if you have dyspraxia, you have to sit there and think about it. With Tourette syndrome, it involves involuntary motor and vocal tics. And contrary to media portrayal, involuntary swearing only affects a small minority of people. So, most people with Tourette's aren't just going to walk around going, fuck, like every 5 seconds. No, it affects a very small amount of people. People with Tourette syndrome often do have motor tics. Sometimes it's hitting themselves or flapping their hands. Other times it's repeating something or making a noise that they just physically cannot help, even if they try. It's not them being disrespectful. It's they literally can't control it. Their body and their mind are just not working together. Let's see. Dyscalculia, which is pretty much numerical dyslexia, as I've heard it called. So instead of struggling with reading, you struggle with mathematical concepts. People with dyscalculia often excel in other forms of logical and abstract thinking, which makes math struggle particularly confusing to teachers who assume math difficulty means general difficulty. Another one is dysgraphia. It complicates written expression not because of poor ideas, but because of the physical or organizational mechanics of getting those ideas onto the page. Many people with dysgraphia are excellent verbal communicators who freeze up the moment they are asked to write something. So there's that one. Sensory processing disorder we will get onto later on, but let's move to the intellectual and cognitive disability side of the gold stripe. So, on this side of the stripe, we have some examples of intellectual disabilities. The phrase intellectual disability covers a wide range of specific conditions, each with its own underlying biology, typical presentation and set of strengths and challenges. These aren't just diagnostic categories, they are lived experiences that look quite different from one another. One of the most common types of intellectual disability that people see is Down syndrome. It results from an extra copy of chromosome 21, a chromosomal event called trisomy 21, and it is the most common chromosomal cause of disability. Most people with Down syndrome fall in the mild to moderate range on cognitive assessments. Many develop strong social skills, form deep relationships, and with appropriate support, live semi-independently or fully independently in adulthood. And this is my personal experience. I've met people with Down syndrome. They are some of the sweetest people on the planet. Like, I'm pretty sure they're angels sent down from heaven with how sweet they are. Another one is Fragile X syndrome. It is the most common inherited cause of intellectual disability. It results from a mutation in the FMR1 gene on the X chromosome, which disrupts the production of protein critical for brain development. Boys are affected more severely than girls because girls have a second X chromosome that can partially compensate for that mutation on the first X. Fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, or FASD. Alcohol exposure during pregnancy interferes with normal fetal brain development, producing a range of outcomes from subtle learning disabilities or learning and attention difficulties to significant intellectual disability. FASD is among the leading non-genetic cause of intellectual disability. Prader-Willi syndrome, I'm pretty sure I said that wrong, involves a missing segment on chromosome 15. The neurological disruption affects appetite, regulation, growth, and cognitive function. Infants are often born with very low muscle tone and feeding difficulties. Later in childhood, an insatiable appetite becomes the dominant challenge. Williams syndrome is caused by the deletion of about 26 genes from chromosome 7. It produces an unusual cognitive profile. People with Williams syndrome often have striking verbal and musical abilities while struggling significantly with spatial reasoning and mathematics. They tend to be socially outgoing in ways that can mask underlying cognitive challenges. These are the better known 5 of intellectual disability, but there are hundreds of different ones that just aren't as recognized or as recognizable. Alright, moving on to the next stripe, which is the white stripe, which is undiagnosed and invisible disabilities. So, this category is for people who have a disability or something that is not diagnosed, or someone who does have it and knows they have it, but it is invisible because there are no physical signs or symptoms of this illness or disability. Some of the most common invisible disabilities are chronic pain, mental illness, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, TBI, traumatic brain injury. As you know, we've just now come across this one. Crohn's disease, diabetes, MS or multiple sclerosis, Lyme disease, and PTSD. Let's see. Many people suffer from chronic pain, and the causes are seemingly endless. Physical injuries, bone disease, back problems, arthritis, and more can all cause people to deal with constant pain on a daily basis. But it is an invisible disability that affects many, many people. Mental illness. Most mental illnesses are invisible to the naked eye unless the symptoms are extreme, whether it's agoraphobia, depression, anxiety, PTSD, schizophrenia, or a host of other mental illnesses. The presence is no less profound for the fact that the illness itself is invisible. Any of these conditions can make life miserable for the victim and make day-to-day tasks nearly unbearable, if not difficult or impossible. 3, which is fibromyalgia. It is considered the leading cause of chronic musculoskeletal pain. Fibromyalgia affects anywhere from 3 to 26 million Americans and can make daily tasks profoundly painful. So it pretty much affects every part of your body, and I know someone who has fibromyalgia, and they say that it oftentimes hurts, like the clothes on their body hurt their skin. It hurts them to wear clothes. It hurts them to move. It gets so bad to the point where they just sob because they are in so much pain, pretty much doing anything at all. The next one is chronic fatigue syndrome, which often can go hand in hand with chronic pain and fibromyalgia. Chronic fatigue syndrome is extremely debilitating, and it can permeate every aspect of a person's life. And it pretty much is awful. Another one is a traumatic brain injury, or TBIs. Victims of car crashes or other traumatic incidents may suffer from a traumatic brain injury. And symptoms may vary wildly depending on the type and severity of the injury, along with the part of the brain that is affected. Number 6 is Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease is one of the many conditions that fall under the umbrella of irritable bowel disorders, which is IBD, and it affects 1.6 million Americans. Diabetes is a health condition in which the body is unable to process glucose because it doesn't manufacture enough insulin. There are 2 types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. I've known several people with diabetes, and it's scary when their sugar drops because you have to try and keep them awake. Multiple sclerosis, a chronic neuromuscular disease. Multiple sclerosis generally progresses over time and may become severe enough to render someone unable to carry out daily tasks. That is awful. Lyme disease. It affects roughly 300,000 Americans each year and brings with it a potential set of symptoms that can be debilitating. And PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is a specific mental health disorder brought on by a traumatic event. We are now going to move on to the blue stripe, which is emotional and psychiatric disabilities. So under this one, we will probably see PTSD pop up again, and depression, because those are mental illnesses, and they do count under that stripe. So, our first one under this one is emotional disorders. Depressive disorders is one of the most common categories, unfortunately. Major depressive disorder, often called depression, involves persistent feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and loss of interest in previously enjoyable activities. I suffer from that one, actually. Of course, I'm on medication to help that. But some individuals experience profound fatigue and sleep disturbances. I have insomnia that is caused by my depression. Anxiety disorders. They constitute another major category, characterized by excessive fear, worry, or anxiety that significantly interferes with daily activities. Generalized anxiety disorder involves persistent, excessive worry about various life domains, while panic disorder features recurrent panic attacks accompanied by intense physical symptoms like heart palpitations, sweating, and feelings of impending doom. I actually have generalized anxiety disorder. If I am not on my medication, I will sit here and pretty much think of every bad thing that could go wrong, how many times it could go wrong, and how I could get out of it. Another one is social anxiety disorder, also known as SAD or SAD. It creates debilitating fear of social situations, often leading to complete avoidance of interpersonal interactions. Specific phobias involve intense irrational fears of particular objects or situations that pose little actual danger. I have that one. Bipolar disorder presents a unique pattern of emotional dysregulation involving alternating episodes of mania or hypomania and depression. During manic episodes, individuals may experience elevated mood, increased energy, decreased need for sleep, grandiose thinking, and impulsive behavior that can have serious consequences. Trauma-related disorders such as PTSD or CPTSD, they develop following exposure to traumatic events and involve persistent re-experiencing of that trauma through flashbacks, nightmares, and or intrusive thoughts. These conditions often co-occur with other emotional disorders and can significantly complicate treatment options and approaches. Let's see. We will now move to the green stripe, which is sensory disabilities. Sensory disabilities impair one or more of the senses, such as vision, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. And they are either partially or completely impaired. These disabilities could be present from birth or develop later due to an injury, an illness, or just simply becoming older. Sensory disabilities can be mild to severe, temporary, or permanent, isolated to one sense, or affect multiple senses. They can impact communication, learning, mobility, and social interaction, and independence, especially in children and those without appropriate support and or help. So the first type is visual impairments or vision disability. These range from partial sight to complete blindness. Vision loss affects the ability to read, navigate spaces, recognize faces, and perform visual tasks. Some common causes of visual impairment are congenital conditions, congenital cataracts, albinism, retinopathy of prematurity or ROP, glaucoma or cataracts, diabetic retinopathy, accidents or trauma, or infections like measles and or rubella in the uterus. Hearing impairments, deafness, or hearing loss can be mild, moderate, severe, or profound, and may affect one or both ears. It impacts speech development, communication, and learning, especially in children. Some common causes are congenital factors like genetic disorders, middle ear infections, noise exposure, meningitis, birth complications, and ototoxic medications. The next type is sensory processing disorder or SPD. This also coincides with ADHD and ASD. People on that side of the neurodivergence spectrum often have sensory processing disorder. Sensory processing disorder is a neurological condition in which the brain has trouble receiving, organizing, and responding to sensory input. This can affect one or more senses and may occur alone or alongside other conditions such as autism or ADHD. There are different types of SPD. Hypersensitivity, which is over-responsiveness, which is easily overwhelmed by sounds, lights, and touch. Personally, I get overwhelmed by too much noise and I start freaking out. Hyposensitivity, which is under-responsiveness, craves movement or touch, may not notice pain or temperature changes. I fluctuate from hypersensitivity to hyposensitivity based on the day. That's why when they say ADHD and ASD is a spectrum, but it's not a linear spectrum, that's what they mean. The needs can change day to day. Another part of SPD is sensory seeking behaviors. Constantly moving, touching objects, or making noise. Some people with autism and ADHD both do that because their brain, they physically cannot just sit there. Their brain does not stop going, it just keeps going and going and going. Some possible causes are premature birth, genetic predisposition, birth trauma, and environmental factors. With ADHD, they have proven that in some cases it could be environmental, but in other cases it just isn't. Then there are dual sensory impairments, which are deaf blindness. Some individuals experience both hearing and visual impairments, which can make communication and independence extremely challenging. Some causes are CHARGE syndrome, Usher syndrome, cytomegalovirus or CMV, or rubella during pregnancy, age-related conditions, injury or illness affecting multiple sensory systems. So the causes of sensory disabilities are either congenital or acquired. So congenital means it's present at birth. Genetic syndromes such as Down syndrome, CHARGE syndrome, birth defects, premature birth, prenatal infections like rubella and toxoplasmosis. Acquired, which means after birth, so things like accidents and trauma, infections like meningitis and measles, tumors or neurological conditions, chronic illnesses such as diabetes, multiple sclerosis, age-related degeneration, for example, like macular degeneration or hearing loss in the elderly. So all of these disabilities, they all coincide, and some of them fall under multiple different categories. So we're going to go over some ones that I haven't talked about, just to bring light and shed awareness and acceptance of disabilities that I have not talked about. And I do want to, of course, bring acceptance and awareness because everybody deserves to be recognized and feel welcome and loved regardless of their disability or ability. And I want to make sure that I am spreading awareness and acceptance so that those people do not feel lonely and or fall victim to the ableist standards of today. Let's see. So, some disabilities that I did not mention are hemophilia, sickle cell disease, of course I mentioned vision impairment, but there's some, let's see, Fragile X syndrome, Kernicterus. I've never heard of that one, actually. Okay. Let's see. Let's find some more examples. And then, once I'm done with this, I will go over the background of the flag, which is the gray, and I will go over what that means. Oh, that actually kind of hurt. Yo, I'm sorry. I should be wearing my glasses, but I'm not. That's my freaking problem. As you can see, my shirt says neurodiversity is beautiful because it is. It is a beautiful flower. Alright, so here we go. Here are some different illnesses and disabilities that I did not mention. There is scoliosis. Of course, stroke would fall under physical disability because of how it affects it. Arthritis, brittle bone disease, dwarfism, epilepsy, osteoporosis, repetitive strain injury, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That is like the third type of hypermobility on the spectrum of that. There's hypermobility arthralgia, which is what I have, and then there's hypermobility Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Let's see. Of course, there's Alzheimer's and dementia that also counts. Encephalitis, motor neuron disease, muscular dystrophy, Proteus syndrome, speech and language disorders, spinal muscular atrophy, Tourette syndrome. There are so many different disabilities that exist and that many are just overlooked and or belittled because the person doesn't look, act, or fit the stereotype of what someone who you would think is disabled looks like, which is some bull crap if you ask me, because there's no one way to look disabled. There really isn't. Okay. Pardon me. Alright, so here are some more examples of disabilities: cancer, diabetes, PTSD, HIV, autism, cerebral palsy, deafness or hearing loss, blindness or low vision, epilepsy, mobility disabilities, intellectual disabilities, MDD or major depressive disorder, TBIs, which are traumatic brain injuries. There are many more. But let's move on to the gray background of the disability pride flag. So what it means is mourning the loss of people that we have lost to ableism and the rage that we feel because of ableism and how many people that were neglected and or mistreated by the system because of ableism could still be alive to this day had ableism not taken them from us. So, I'm going to look up common examples of ableism because some people, it's subconscious because it's so ingrained in our society, and then there are people that just willingly wake up to choose to be an asshole. So, here are 15 examples of ableism. Hi, Turby. I know, you're a cute boy. Assuming inability. So, when you assume that a person with a disability can't do something because of their disability, without even asking them whether they can or can't, that is ableist. Just because someone is, for example, in a wheelchair, doesn't mean they can't, go move some boxes around. I'm sure if they were able to, they would. Just ask. It undermines their abilities and it can damage their confidence. Everyone, and I mean everyone, should be given the chance to show their abilities and what they can do. Inaccessible environments. Buildings without ramps or elevators exclude people who use wheelchairs. Seriously, this is 2026. How hard is it to install an elevator or a freaking wheelchair ramp? This type of ableism creates physical barriers that prevent people with disabilities from accessing services, jobs, and social opportunities. It sends a message that their presence is not valued, making environments accessible benefits everyone, not just those with disabilities. And this is my personal opinion, and if people don't like it, they can kiss my derriere. Just because someone has a disability, illness, chronic illness, does not mean that they are less worthy of fucking existing than you. It means they have a different life than you. They have a different life experience than you. That does not make them fucking worthless. I have been over this with Pride Month. I've been over this with women's rights. I've been over this with African American rights. I've been over this with immigrant rights. For the love of all that is holy, in whatever religion you believe in, whether you believe in it or not. Just because someone lives differently or has a different life experience than you does not make them fucking worthless. And if you seem to think so, you are most likely ableist and a bunch of other things. The next example of ableism is pity and inspiration. Treating people with disabilities as objects of pity or inspirational just for living their lives is a form of ableism. It reduces their experiences to simplistic narratives that ignore their full humanity. This is fucking patronizing and dismissive. People with disabilities want to be seen as a fucking person, not a source of inspiration or pity, so you can go, oh, you're so inspirational for leaving your house, or, oh my god, I feel so bad that you're in a wheelchair. Good lord, I think they've experienced that themselves. Treat them like a fucking human being. Using derogatory language. Using words like crippled to describe someone with a disability is ableism. These terms are offensive and perpetrate negative stereotypes. Such language can hurt and demean individuals with disabilities. Please, for the love of God, don't use the R word either, and you know which one I'm talking about. And don't use crippled. That's fucking rude. It's up to the person with the disability to determine whether or not you can use those words. And if they say no, then don't fucking use them. Excluding them from activities. When people with disabilities are excluded from social or recreational activities because of some assumptions about their capabilities, it is ableism. This might happen in schools or community events where organizers do not consider making activities accessible. It prevents them from participating fully in society and enjoying the same experiences as others. For the love of God, stop excluding people because you are uncomfortable that somebody is different from you. Good gravy. I feel like I'm teaching a classroom full of kindergartners. Actually, I take that back. The kindergartners actually have more manners and are more accepting than the adults. I feel like I'm teaching a class of jerks, of high school bullies. Oh boy. Medical ableism. When healthcare providers dismiss symptoms or concerns of people with disabilities, attributing everything to their existing condition, this is ableism. It can lead to misdiagnosis or inadequate treatment. This could seriously hurt somebody. This could cause the end of somebody's life because you won't fucking listen, pull a stick out of your derriere, and actually sit there and go, okay, this doesn't sound right, this is not right, because you think, oh, it's just their disability, blah, 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 blah. Get out, I just want to move on. Yeah, you're an asshole. Educational barriers. Schools that do not provide adequate support or accommodations for students with disabilities are practicing ableism. This can result in students falling behind or not reaching their full potential. Every student has the right to quality education. Exactly. And stop letting little children get away with bullying people with disabilities because they look different, they act different, they do something different. Oh my word, we're all different. We all do weird things, whether it's a disability thing or not. Good gravy. Segregation in housing. Placing people with disabilities in separate housing facilities instead of integrated inclusive communities is a form of ableism. Cough, cough. Institutionalizing people in the 1900s and back. Cough, cough. That was institutionalization, which is inherently harmful. You are locking them away because they don't fit your perfect idea of society. So go fuck yourself. This segregation can lead to isolation and a lack of social opportunities. People with disabilities have the right to live in communities where they can interact with others and access various services. Stop fucking treating disabled people like they are fucking infants. Most of them hate being infantilized. Please don't infantilize someone with a disability because they look, act, or function differently from you. Infantilizing someone is just pretty much treating them like a fucking baby because instead of taking 5 minutes to actually learn about their needs and disability, you decide it's easier to fucking coddle them, and it pisses people off. Microaggressions. Everyday comments or actions that subtly express prejudice against people with disabilities are known as microaggressions. For example, saying, "You don't look disabled," or "You're so brave for going out," can be demeaning. Once again, we're going back to the white stripe and mental illness. The white stripe and the blue stripe on the disability pride flag. Fibromyalgia, mental illness, chronic fatigue, chronic pain. Those are all invisible illnesses and disabilities. You can't fucking see that. Everyone is fighting a damn battle that you don't know about because it could just be something invisible that only they can feel, only they know how it feels to fight that battle. So, fuck off and stop being hostile and demeaning. And there is no one way to look disabled. There isn't. There's no fucking way to look disabled. Disability looks different for every fucking person on the planet. I suffer from mental illness. I suffer from a neurodevelopmental disorder known as ADHD. So yeah, I function normally because I'm on medication. If I wasn't, I wouldn't function at all. So don't assume just because someone functions a certain way means that they have nothing wrong with them. It could just be they're on medication. It could be they're going to therapy. It could be that they have gotten help and are now slowly improving their lives, even with their invisible disability. Because Those things never go away. Mental illness, it can be treated, it can be managed, but it never truly goes away. Chronic fatigue, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, they can be managed, they can be treated, but it never fully goes away. Another example of ableism is assuming mental incompetence. When people assume that someone with a physical disability also has cognitive impairment, it is ableism. This can lead to speaking slowly, like this, hello, can you hear me? That's fucking rude. Using simple language or talking down to them, like baby talk. Fucking rude, too. It overlooks the individual's capabilities and can be very frustrating. People should be treated on their abilities, not fucking assumptions. Just because someone is in a wheelchair does not mean they have a cognitive impairment. It could just mean they were in a really bad traumatic accident. It could mean that they had surgery and it went wrong. It could mean they were born paralyzed. It could mean any number of fucking ideals on the planet that don't involve cognitive impairment. Inaccessible public transportation. Good God. Public transportation systems that are not accessible to people with disabilities limit their independence and mobility. This might include buses without ramps, trains without elevators, or inaccessible platforms. It restricts their ability to travel, work, and participate in society. Good God, how hard is it to put a damn ramp somewhere? Objectifying people with disabilities. Here we go! Treating people with disabilities as if they are objects of curiosity or using them to make oneself feel better is ableism. For example, staring at someone with a disability or using their story to feel grateful for your own life dehumanizes them and reduces them to their disability. People with disabilities deserve to be seen and respected as whole individuals. Good God, if someone tells you they got in a car accident and they wound up paralyzed or something, and you go, oh, well, I'm so grateful that never happened to me. Once again, I'm going to go back to saying, we can all become disabled at any given fucking time. It could literally be tomorrow. It could be today. It could be any damn fucking minute. It could be next week, next month, next year, next 10 years. You don't know. So once again, don't be an ableist asshole, because you could be next to be affected by something that causes a disability, and then guess what? Nobody's going to be there for you because you're going to be known as the asshole. Another one, tokenism. Including a person with disability in an activity or group to only appear inclusive without giving them real power of voice is ableism. This might happen in workplaces or media representations where diversity is showcased superficially. It can feel patronizing and doesn't address systemic issues of inequality. Genuine inclusion means valuing and incorporating their contributions fully. Don't just include somebody to look good because, oh, I'm so great, I'm just going to ask Susie in a wheelchair to come so that way we all look inclusive and we're great and we're like, oh my God, and everybody praises us. That's being an asshole. That is tokenism. And, of course, the lack of representation. While we want to avoid tokenism, we still want to see genuine involvement of people with disabilities in media, politics, and other public arenas. Invisibility in the public sphere perpetrates stereotypes and ignores the diversity of experiences within the disabled community. Representation matters because it helps break down prejudice and provides role models for others, including people with disabilities in various roles, can foster a more inclusive society. So for the love of God, could you please, all of you in general, stop being ableist? Once again, we could all become disabled at any goddamn time. We could have an invisible dormant illness that's just waiting for the right moment to, bam, take us off guard. We could go outside and get hit by a car tomorrow. We could go outside and get hit by a bus. We could go drive our car to work, and the next thing we know, we're in a car accident. Our car's rolled 3 feet, and we're mangled for life, or maimed. Or, we could have a sudden heart attack, a sudden stroke, sudden seizure, and we're fucked. So, for the love of goodness, before you open your damn mouth and say something ableist, remember that. Remember that it not only could be you, that could wind up disabled at any damn moment, but somebody you love. But most importantly, remember that it could be you. Because if you wind up disabled, all those people you made fun of for being disabled probably won't help you because you have a stick up your ass. So remember that.